You've probably seen a viral video where Mark Wahlberg insults Eminem live on MTV, but no one has told you what happened next. And it took things to a whole new level. With Mark taking shots at Eminem and M ranting about Mark in interviews, that beef went on for almost 10 years. So today, we're diving into the full story of why these two couldn't stand each other, and how, 10 years later, everything took a completely unexpected turn. To get it, we need to go back to Mark Wahlberg's beginnings. While he's a famous actor now, what most people don't know is that he actually started his career as a rapper. At a very young age, he joined his brother Donnie's music project with his friends Danny and Jordan, a group called Nanook. However, his time in the group was short-lived. After he left, Joey took his place, and they decided to change the name to New Kids on the Block. Sound familiar? They're considered the first modern boy band, paving the way for the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and of course getting dissed by Eminem later on. After leaving the group, he became addicted to cocaine at just 13 years old and began carrying out several racist attacks in his neighborhood. In 1986, he chased and hurled insults at several black children using slogans from a certain group of hooded white men. You know exactly who I mean. Then, in '88, he assaulted 2 Asian men, which landed him in prison for over a month. Ironically, in the early 90s, Mark started getting into hip-hop, and in 1991, he formed the group Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. And with Donnie pulling some strings, success came fast. That same July, they dropped their debut album, Music for the People. Their singles Good Vibrations and Wild Side reached #1 and #10 on the Billboard charts respectively, while the album climbed to #21 on the Hot 200. It sold over 1 million copies and went platinum just 6 months after its release, following in the footsteps of the other big white rapper at the time, a guy named Vanilla Ice. He quickly became a pop icon, dropped a video game, and became a sex symbol with Kate Moss, thanks to Calvin Klein. Honestly, Mark didn't even care that his second album flopped and the group split in '93. He was already a big deal. Soon enough, he left music behind and jumped into acting, kind of like what Will Smith was doing at the time. After a few years bouncing between music, modeling, and acting, he decided to fully step away from music in 1998 and focus on his movie career, hoping everyone would forget about Marky Mark and only know him as Mark Wahlberg, the actor. And that's when Eminem steps into the picture. In March of that year, he signed with Aftermath, and by January of the next year, during one of his shows promoting the Slim Shady LP, he dropped a freestyle where he mentioned Mark Wahlberg, referring to the 1997 movie Boogie Nights, where Mark played the role of a porn star.
He called me Boogie Night with a dick bigger than Mark Wahlberg.
This movie must have really stuck with Eminem, because later on, we'll see how he brings it up again in another song. So, nearly 2 months after that, with the Slim Shady LP out, Eminem made his first appearance on MTV to promote the album on TRL. TRL was this show where the audience picked their favorite music videos, and they'd bring in artists for interviews. At the time, My Name Is video, which had dropped in January on that same show, was already one of the top requests, so they brought Eminem on. But he wasn't the only guest. Halfway through the interview, they'd brought in Mark Wahlberg to promote his new movie, The Corruptor. However, Mark didn't want to be on the show the same day as Eminem for 2 reasons. The first, and most obvious, was he didn't want the whole white rapper thing and his past as a rapper to come up. The second was because Eminem had said in an interview a few days earlier that he didn't want to be like Vanilla Ice or Marky Mark. So, what's the first thing Eminem did when Mark showed up? He made some wordplay about Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, and Mark just muttered an insult in response.
Where am I supposed to go? Over here?
Yeah, just go right there.
We'll just all stand together like a happy, fun bunch.
Yeah.
Happy group.
Yeah.
Happy group.
Carlson tried to ease the tension, but it backfired as well because Mark dismissed Eminem by pretending he didn't even know he had an album out.
Have SHADY in the store. Pick it up. Mark, we're going to hang out.
After that, Eminem left, and it was Mark Wahlberg's turn for the solo interview, where it was clear he was a bit pissed off. He even threw another jab at Eminem, saying he didn't like white guys.
Ice Cube got Mark Wahlberg in the corner. And here's Freak on the Leash at #3.
I don't like white guys.
They think the guy.
Meanwhile, M was over in the MTV photo booth, snapping these photos that you might have already seen. After all this, Eminem gave an interview to Rolling Stone, where he went off on Mark, sharing what went down behind the scenes. Marky Mark, effing asshole, bastard prick. I don't know what the F his problem was. He walked up in there like effing, What is there supposed to be some effing tension in here? He's a effing little fat. I'm standing with Carson Daly and we're off air, and some dude who works for MTV tells us Mark Wahlberg is coming in. Says he'd appreciate it if we don't call him Marky Mark. I thought that was kind of funny. I wasn't planning on doing that anyways. Little effing homo. Then he comes up and he's standing on the side when we were off air, and he's like, what? Is there supposed to be some effing tension in here or something? I pretended like I didn't hear him and Then we're on air, and Carson calls him on set, and I'm like, what up, Mark? He shakes my hand, but he doesn't even look at me. He goes, where do you want me to stand? Carson's like, you can just stand there. I'm like, we'll just stand around here like one big fun bunch. So I threw a stab at him. He didn't want me to say Marky, probably didn't want me to say Funky neither. Marky looked away and when I said that, with a look that was like, effing dick. So Carson congratulates me on my sales for the week, and Marky Mark is like, oh, you got an album out? Effing dick. Nah, you effing bit. You already heard it everywhere, you fat F. You probably got 6 copies. You effing little queer. After I leave, Carson and Mark are talking about Korn on the air, and Marky Mark says, I like Korn. Ice Cube turned me on to them. I usually don't like white people who do music, though. Trying to throw another stab at me, I guess. What the F is he? Because he doesn't do music now. He doesn't like white people who do music. How'd he do albums? I've never even mentioned his effing name anywhere. After all that, it was pretty clear a new beef between white boys had just been born, and there was no way Eminem was coming out the loser. By June of that same year, Missy Elliott dropped her album Da Real World, and guess who showed up on the track Busa Rhyme? Turns out that freestyle we talked about earlier, the one where he mentioned Mark, ended up being the exact verse he used on that track. That would be the last time Eminem had anything remotely nice to say about Mark, at least for a few years. M got his real revenge in May 2000 with the release of the Marshall Mathers LP. This album launched Eminem into full-blown global superstardom, and it featured the track Drug Ballad, which kicks off with the line, back when Mark Wahlberg was Marky Mark, something we already know really bugged Mark. But that wasn't even the real jab. The actual shot flew completely under the radar for most people, because if you listen closely, right after that line, Eminem whispers his favorite slur at the time. This is how. And if that wasn't enough, like we told you at the start, M also threw some bars at Mark's brother Donnie and his boy band, this time on the track, Marshall Mathers. Fun little fact, a few months after all that drama, both Eminem and Mark were considered to play Brian in The Fast and the Furious. If you're curious about other movies Eminem almost starred in, go ahead and hit that like button. Anyway, back to the beef. Mark kept quiet for a while, but a few years later, he finally fired back in a magazine interview. It was in April 2005 when Details magazine interviewed him for their May issue. In that interview, he said the following, my childhood wasn't like some 8-mile bush where you go and have a rap-off, or like West Side Story, where you all start dancing and... If I make a film about my upbringing, it's gonna be about more than a effing kid doing that, like in Good Will Hunting. You know what I mean? Eminem never responded to this jab, and things cooled off for a few years, which just so happened to be during one of the hardest times in his life, the death of Proof, his bad addiction, and his near-death experience. Then, 4 years later, in October 2009, Wahlberg stopped by Eminem's radio station, Shade 45, and said that he and Matt Damon were supposed to star in a boxing movie together. But since Matt turned down the role, he was thinking about offering it to Eminem, and even mentioned they had talked on the phone.
We were supposed to do this boxing movie together. We're just supposed to play brothers, and I don't think he's really feeling up to it. So maybe we'll get Eminem to play the part. I think he was attached to play one of the parts at one point. You know, me and him actually talked on the phone while in Philly making another movie.
The movie Wahlberg was talking about was The Fighter, which came out in 2010. By that time, things were finally cool between them. In an interview for the August issue of Spin magazine, where he was on the cover, Eminem talked about his addiction. He mentioned how, during that time, he used to watch DVDs over and over, just putting them on repeat. And yeah, one of those was Boogie Nights. He said he watched it 150 times, and that he was a fan of Mark Wahlberg. The next month, Eminem made a cameo on Entourage, the show that Mark was an executive producer on. However, not everything was as cool as it seemed. Sometimes Mark would throw little jabs or show some signs of indifference towards Eminem. For example, in 2013, while promoting his movie Lone Survivor, he said that he was the best white rapper who ever became an actor.
I'm the best white rapper turned actor. I mean, Eminem did a great job in 8 Mile, but he only made one movie.
And the following year, in 2014, at an MTV event, he was seen making awkward faces while Eminem and Rihanna were performing. In 2015, Eminem gifted Mark a pair of his sneakers from his collaboration with Air Jordan and Carhartt, which Mark wore multiple times between 2015 and 2018. Then came 2017 and the widely disliked Revival. In that album, Eminem sampled a scene from one of Mark Wahlberg's movies for his song Heat. And yep, you guessed it, the movie was Boogie Nights. The dude is obsessed. Right after that, Wahlberg came clean and admitted in a GQ video that his whole issue with Eminem came down to jealousy.
But also check out Eminem's new album. The song is called The Heat. He sampled me and John Riley from Boogie Nights. Actually a very good song.
Read it.
Met him at an MTV event. We hung out. Very cool guy, very talented. And yes, I didn't give him credit for that a long time ago. I was a hater because he was a better rapper than me. I'll admit that. I think that's the first time I publicly admitted that. But yeah.
And to wrap up this whole love-hate saga, by 2020, Eminem said Mark was still one of his favorite actors. Did you notice we kicked off this video with Haley being 4, and now Eminem's probably watching Boogie Nights while feeding his grandson Elliot Marshall? We old as fuck.